He held my hand gently. His fingers were warm. Mine were cold and weak. I was lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by quiet machines and soft beeping sounds. The room smelled clean, almost too clean. White walls. White sheets. White silence. Paul leaned closer to me. My husband. The man I married when everyone told me I was too old and too busy to believe in love again. He smiled. And then he whispered, "Only 3 days. Finally everything's mine." His voice was soft, almost excited, like someone counting down to a holiday. For a second, my mind tried to protect me. I told myself I heard it wrong. I told myself he was nervous. I told myself this was just stress talking. But then I looked into his eyes. There was no fear there. No sadness. No concern for the woman dying in front of him. Only relief. That was the moment I knew something was very wrong. My body was weak. The doctors said my liver was failing. They said it happened suddenly. They said sometimes the body just gives up. But my mind was still clear. Very clear. Paul squeezed my hand a little tighter. He thought I was asleep. He thought the medicine had taken me away from this world already. But I was still here. I had built hospitals from nothing. I had signed deals worth millions. I had survived boardrooms full of men who wanted me gone. And now, lying in this bed, I understood something painful. This was not illness. This was not bad luck. This was planned. 3 years. That number stayed in my head. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of small changes. 3 years of pills he brought me with a smile. I remembered how tired I had felt. How weak I had become. How the doctors were confused. And suddenly, everything made sense. Paul stood up and adjusted his jacket. He looked relaxed. Like a man who had already won. "I'll be back later," he said softly. He did not kiss my forehead. He did not say he loved me. He just walked out. The door closed quietly behind him. The room went silent again. I stared at the ceiling and took a slow breath. It hurt. But it grounded me. That was when I made a decision. If he thought I was already gone, then I would use that. If he believed I was weak, then I would let him believe it. And if he thought everything was already his, he was very, very wrong. Before I became the woman lying in that hospital bed, I was a woman who built things. I did not inherit my wealth. I did not marry into it. I earned it slowly, carefully, and with many sleepless nights. When I was young, I wanted to help people. Not in a loud way. Not to be praised. I simply wanted to fix what was broken. I started with one small medical center. It was old. The paint was peeling. The equipment was outdated. But the people were good. Doctors who cared. Nurses who stayed late. Patients who had nowhere else to go. I worked every day. Sometimes 14 hours. Sometimes more. While others went home to dinner. I stayed back to read reports, sign papers, and plan improvements. Years passed. That one center became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became a network. Hospitals in different cities. Modern buildings. Clean rooms. Better care. People started calling it an empire. I never liked that word. To me, it was responsibility. With success came loneliness. Board meetings replaced family meals. Business trips replaced holidays. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I did not need anyone. But that was only half true. Then Paul came into my life. He was younger than me. Confident. Charming in a quiet way. He did not talk much about money. He asked about my work with interest, not envy. He listened. That mattered to me. People warned me. They always do. They said, "He's too young. He's enjoying your lifestyle. He's waiting for something." I ignored them. Because when you are tired of being strong, kindness feels like safety. Paul made me laugh. He brought me tea in the mornings. He reminded me to rest. For the first time in years, I let someone take care of me. We married quietly. No big celebration. No headlands. Just a simple promise. At first, life felt softer. Paul encouraged me to slow down. He said my health mattered more than work. He insisted I see doctors regularly. I thought that was love. When I started feeling tired, he was the one who handed me my medicine. Doctor said this will help, he would say. When I lost my appetite, he cooked light meals. When I felt dizzy, he held my arm and smiled. I trusted him completely. That is the most dangerous thing a person can do. Trust someone. Without watching. Slowly, my body began to change. I was always tired. My skin lost its color. My hands shook when I held a cup. Doctors were confused. Tests came back unclear. Treatments did not help. Paul sat beside me at every appointment. He asked questions. He looked concerned. I never suspected him. Why would I? He was my husband. The man who slept beside me. The man who said he loved me every night. But illness has a strange way of peeling back truth. As my body weakened, my world became smaller. I stopped going to the office. I stopped attending meetings. Paul started handling things, temporarily. He signed papers for me. He spoke to my lawyers. He smiled and said, "Just focus on getting better." I believed him. From my hospital bed now, I could see it clearly. The timing, the control, the patience. 3 years. 3 years of quiet poisoning. 3 years of waiting. Paul did not rush. He was careful. And that was his mistake. Because while my body was failing, my mind was not. And I still had time. The medicine they gave me was supposed to make me sleep. That is what the nurse said. "It will help you rest," she whispered, adjusting the drip. My eyelids felt heavy. My body felt distant. Like I was floating somewhere just above the bed. But my mind was still here. Still listening. Still awake. That night, the door opened softly. I did not turn my head. I did not open my eyes. I learned long ago that silence can be powerful. Paul walked in. I recognized his steps immediately. Behind him was another voice. Lower. Male. One of his friends. They stood near the foot of my bed. "She won't wake up," Paul said calmly. They increased the dose. There was a short pause. Then the other man laughed quietly. 3 years, Paul, he said. That's a long time. Paul exhaled slowly, like a man finally resting. I had to be careful, he replied. It had to look natural. My heart beat faster, but my body did not move. What did you even give her? The man asked. Paul's voice dropped. A rare compound, he said. Small amounts. Almost impossible to trace. My fingers felt numb. My legs felt heavy. But every word landed clearly in my mind. She trusted me, Paul continued. That made it easy. The other man whistled softly. And now? Paul smiled. I could hear it in his voice. Liver failure, he said. Another few days. Then it's done. I wanted to scream. I wanted to open my eyes and look at him. But I didn't. I stayed still. Because I understood something important. He believed I was already gone. After a moment, they left. The door closed. The room returned to silence. My heart was racing. Not with fear. With focus. 3 years. 3 years of poisoning. 3 years of lies whispered into my ear at night. I felt a deep sadness rise in my chest. Not for my body. Not for my money. For the love I thought I had. Tears slid slowly down the sides of my face. So quiet that no one noticed. I took a slow breath. I was dying. That much was clear. But I was not powerless. I had built hospitals. I had protected patients. I had fought systems stronger than me. And now, lying in this bed, I would protect my legacy. The next morning, a woman came in to clean the room. She moved quietly, respectfully. She did not rush. She did not ignore me. She adjusted my pillow gently. Are you comfortable, ma'am? She asked softly. I opened my eyes. Just a little. Enough to meet hers. Yes, I whispered. But I need help. She froze. Not with fear. With concern. My name is Chloe, she said after a moment. I'm here. I looked at her and made a decision. Sometimes, help comes from the place you least expect. And sometimes, justice begins with a stranger who listens. Chloe closed the door behind her before speaking again. She did it slowly, like she did not want to disturb the air. She came closer to my bed and lowered her voice. What kind of help do you need? She asked. I took a moment before answering. Speaking took effort. Every word felt heavy. I need someone I can trust, I said softly. And I need to move quickly. Her eyes searched my face. She was careful. Not curious in the wrong way. I think my husband is trying to kill me, I said. The words sounded strange when I said them out loud. Almost unreal. Chloe did not laugh. She did not question me. She just stood there, very still. Do you want me to call someone? She asked. Yes, I said. My lawyer. I told her the name. Jason O'Connell. She nodded once. I can do that. Before she left, I reached for her hand. It was warm. Steady. If you help me, I said, I will make sure you are taken care of. She hesitated. Then she said quietly, I don't need money to do the right thing. But I saw the truth in her eyes. She needed stability. She needed a chance. And I needed someone brave. That afternoon, Jason came. He looked shocked when he saw me. You're awake, he said softly. Very awake, I replied. I told him everything. The medicine. The confession. The timeline. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back and took a slow breath. We have to be precise, he said. And fast. I know, I replied. The next morning, a notary arrived. And a psychiatrist. Not because I was confused, but because I wanted no doubt. They asked me simple questions. My name. The date. My intent. I answered calmly. I knew exactly what I was doing. I changed my will. Every hospital. Every account. Every asset. All of it. I left nothing to Paul. Everything went to Chloe. When Paul visited that evening, he smiled like a man already celebrating. He kissed my forehead and whispered, Rest now. I looked at him and smiled back. And that smile was my goodbye. That night, the hospital was unusually quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, not peaceful. The lights were dimmed. The machines around my bed hummed softly, like they were breathing with me. I was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that comes after a long life. Chloe came in one last time. She adjusted my blanket and sat beside me for a moment. It's done, she whispered. Everything you asked for. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said. My voice was weak, but my mind was calm. She looked like she wanted to say something more. But words felt unnecessary. Some things do not need explaining. After she left, I stared at the ceiling. I thought about my first hospital. The cracked walls. The broken equipment. I thought about my younger self. So determined. So alone. And strangely, I felt proud. Paul came later. He stood beside my bed and watched me quietly. He thought this was the end. You did well, he whispered to himself. Not to me. I kept my eyes closed. If he had known how awake I was, he would have been afraid. My breathing slowed. Pain faded into distance. I did not feel fear. Only release. I let go gently. I did not see Paul's face when the doctor told him, but I heard about it later. They said he cried. They said he held his head in his hands. 3 days later, the will was read. Paul arrived confident, dressed sharply, already planning his future. Then the words changed. Nothing went to him. Not the houses. Not the hospitals. Not the money. Everything belonged to Chloe. Paul's face went pale. He shouted. He argued. He demanded answers. But Jason had prepared everything carefully. Every signature. Every witness. Every evaluation. There was no doubt. Paul lost everything in one afternoon. What he did not know yet was that this was only the beginning. I was gone. But the truth stayed behind. At first, Paul told everyone my death was natural. He spoke softly. He wore black. He acted like a grieving husband. But grief cannot hide guilt forever. My attorney did not stop with the will. He had listened carefully when I spoke. He had taken notes. After the will was read, questions began. Why had my health failed so suddenly? Why were my medical records so inconsistent? Why had certain test results been delayed? The district attorney opened an investigation. They exhumed my body. What they found confirmed what I already knew. Poison. Slow. Deliberate. Precise. The kind that takes time. The kind meant to look like illness. Security footage told the rest of the story. Paul had been seen buying the compound. Not once. Not twice. For years. There was no anger in the courtroom when they showed the evidence. Only silence. Paul did not look confident anymore. He looked small. Chloe stood at the back of the room. Quiet. Watching. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She used what I left her to do what mattered. She kept the hospitals running. She protected the staff. She honored the work. Justice did not come loudly. It came carefully. And that was enough. If there is one thing I want you to remember, it is this. Power does not always look strong. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes, the quiet ones see everything. And sometimes, the greatest decision you make is not how you live, but how you leaved. I was gone. But the world I built still mattered. And the people I trusted carried pieces of me forward. Chloe walked through my hospitals like she belonged there. She cleaned, yes, but she also watched. She listened. She learned quickly how the system worked. Paul, meanwhile, tried to reclaim what he thought was his. He filed lawsuits. He shouted. He begged. But the law had been written clearly. Every safeguard was in place. Every signature accounted for. He did not understand that my final act was not just revenge. It was protection. A shield for the people and work I loved more than money. He went from confident to desperate. Once, I would have pitied him. But pity was not mine to give anymore. Not to someone who smiled while I lay dying. The district attorney, David Chin, opened a formal murder investigation. He exhumed my body. The poison was confirmed. The rare compound Paul used left traces only someone careful could detect. But it did not matter now. Every piece of the puzzle was in place. Security cameras, pharmacy records, hospital logs, all pointed to Paul. The man who held my hand, smiling, thinking I was weak. And he had been weak all along. Soon, questions arose. Doctors puzzled over my sudden death. The district attorney began asking about my records, my prescriptions, and my last days. Paul tried to act naturally. He played the grieving husband. He tried to explain, to charm. But every lie left him more exposed. The truth was coming, quietly, inevitably. Security footage, pharmacy records, hospital logs, all painted the same story. Paul had been buying the rare compound. Paul had been administering it for years. Paul had smiled while I weakened. He believed he was untouchable. He was wrong. Chloe stayed calm throughout. She handed over documents, signed affidavits, and kept my hospitals running. She made sure my work continued. And most importantly, she made sure justice would be served. Paul's first hint of trouble came when the will was read. He walked in confident, imagining every building, every account, every hospital would be his. And then he heard the words, "Everything is left to Chloe Jefferson." He froze. The room went silent. Even the lawyers looked at him. He argued. He shouted. He begged. He tried to manipulate, to twist, to claim oversight. But every safeguard I had put in place held. Every witness, every document, Every legal procedure, airtight. For the first time in years, Paul realized that he was powerless. All his planning, all his patience, all his greed, meaningless. I imagined him sitting alone in the empty house, trying to understand how the woman he thought was weak had outsmarted him from a hospital bed. He had underestimated me. And that was his undoing.